if someone is listening who's maybe going through that challenge themselves, what is that framework that you developed, or how did you change your job search that led to this successful role as a PMM?
Interesting enough, it's rooted in design thinking principles, which is about reframing.
Oh, do tell.
So
I mean, now you have my
yeah.
attention.
So, a lot of people come to me and the first thing they say is, I have been rejected again by this job. I just feel like I'm not cut out for this. Should I just keep going? Like, what do I do? I don't even know what to do. There's a lot of self-doubt. There's a lot of feeling like they just don't know how to proceed and everything. So generally, the first thing I do is to really ask them to take a step back, look at that situation, and try to reframe it. So if you feel like I am not good enough because I keep getting rejected, if that's your first initial limiting belief, what is a way you can reframe that? Where you can say, I have been rejected. However, I kept making further and further in the interview process. And if I keep improving and changing my approach little by little, eventually I can succeed. So a lot of times I really tell people to break down the interview process and think in stepwise fashion. And most people will realize, even though they haven't reached their final goal, they are actually, in fact, making progress. And not everything they have been doing is really wasted. So using that kind of technique has really been helpful for people to sort of see the light and gain some
Right.
control and confidence in their process.
What many people don't take the time to understand is the job search is like a funnel. I'm making up using round numbers, but it's 100 applications to 10 callbacks to 5 conversations to 2 interviews to an offer, right? There's a ratio in all this.
Mhm.
And again, when we have that external locus of control, it's easy to feel rejected 90 times. But when you
Yes.
have that internal locus of control, you can say that's 90 opportunities to iterate my value proposition for the 10 that are going forward.
100%. I think that framing is super important. And I'm really glad you called it out because it's not something I thought a lot about, but I think it is really important. I will say the vast majority, like 95 plus percent of people who come to me, they would use the word rejected. Like I've been rejected from here, I've been rejected from there, right? And it's a very disempowering way of talking about it. The focus is on negative to your point. To your point, like if you flip the narrative, those are the opportunities that didn't make it, right? They didn't progress. But here are the ones that did progress. And this is how far they've progressed. The framing is completely different and is focused on the things that are positive. I'm happy to give you a personal anecdote here, like a story, because I think it illustrates your point perfectly. One of my dream jobs actually was at Adobe, and it still is. I really admire the company. And it took me 6 months to network. I basically, did everything the playbook of finding the right people, presenting myself to the VPs and C-suites of the company, finding referrals, learned everything about the product, went to every single event that they had, right? And then made my way into the final round of an Adobe interview where I placed all my bets and my hopes on the interview. It turned out on that day of the final interview, the official interviewer was sick. So there was a replacement. So his colleague went in and did the interview. And because that person was someone I didn't know, so it was hard for me to prepare, and we didn't have an initial connection, I was somehow waitlisted for that position. So when I heard that I was waitlisted and I wasn't the first choice, it was super devastating. And I waited for a week first, nothing. Waited for 2 weeks, nothing. Until 3 weeks later, they told me, unfortunately, somebody else got the position and we were sorry. Best of luck. And basically, after that, I felt like my word was done for because I was rejected from the role that I prepared for 6 months. And if I spent 6 months preparing for that, I still didn't get the job, right? What's my worth, right? What am I good for? So it was exactly that negative reframe that happened in this instance. But after taking 3 days to rethink about the situation, I was like, wait a minute. First of all, yes, I was rejected, in the final round, but I didn't fail
Right.
because I made it to the final and it was something that was outside of my control. Everything I did up to the point was the right thing to do. I still made it to the final round, right? As a career switcher with absolutely no tech marketing experience. So then I thought, okay, well, what can I do to apply this experience? And I just realized I could apply to a similar company and use the same exact methodology. And that's when I realized I should apply to Autodesk, which has a very similar business to Adobe. And that is why I reached out to people at Autodesk, went through the entire interview process, and got the job at Autodesk 2 months later using the exact same technique I learned from Adobe. So I think a lot of people kind of would be stuck at that failure and not proceeding moving forward. But I think that was a learning moment for me, is to take what I've learned and the good parts of that and apply it to the next situation.